Hello, everybody. How's everybody today? Happy Tuesday, everybody. It is a little after 12:01. So in the spirit of keeping things on time and moving, because everybody's busy and no lunch today, so you're all going to want to get out of here at 1 o'clock. I'm going to call this meeting of the MSD Advisory Committee, regular board meeting, to order and ask that we take the roll call, please.
Before Kim starts, I would like to introduce Karen Sullivan. She is the new Executive Director for Swiss Bear, and so the Swiss Bear Executive Director is an ex officio position on this board. So,
Welcome, Karen. We're so glad to have you.
yeah, Karen.
And thank you, Johnny Ross, for hiring us.
Okay, David Barthol,
Here.
Sabrina Basil,
Here.
Gretchen Duplessis, Kesa, here. Lynn Herrickle.
So now it'll now be Karen,
Okay.
so it'll be.
John Harrelson.
Here comes John.
Chris Hopeland.
I'm here.
Vaughn
Here.
Lewis,
Present.
Mickey Miller,
Here.
Michael Raines, Johnny Robinson,
Here.
Michaela Rose Watson. Here. Alderman Pearl.
Here.
Alderman Royal. Foster Hughes.
Here.
And Kim Ostrey.
Okay, thank you so much. We do have a quorum. Okay, in your packet that you received, there were minutes from the March 19th regular meeting and the April 2nd work session. And I trust that you all have voraciously read them and gone through them. And I do have very slight typos that I would like to mention and correct. On the April 2nd, Lynn Herrickle's name, Lynn has an E on the end. Some places you got the E, some places you don't. So to be consistent, just wherever you're missing an E, add that. And that's my only change. Does anybody else have any additions, corrections, anything like that? If not, then I would accept a motion to adopt, and you have to state each set of minutes, please.
All right, I'll make a motion that we accept the March 19 minutes as presented with the minor correction of Lynn's name.
I second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, for the April 2nd.
I make a motion to accept the April 2nd meetings with the same change of adding an E to Lynn's name where necessary.
I second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. Let's go to the next item on the agenda, which is the discussion of, to establish criteria for public comment. So at, I believe it was the last board meeting of the Board of Aldermen, they have instituted a resolution that requires that all of the committees have a public hearing component to their board, and have asked that we discuss the criteria, set it, and then have a public comment section of each of our minutes. So some of the things we need to consider is the length of time. Now, I tell you, the Board of Aldermen does 4 minutes. The bike and pedestrian plan just adopted theirs. They're doing 3 minutes. So there's nothing within the law or within the resolution that says you have to have the time. So that's a discussion point we need to discuss. And then the other one is where in the agenda do we want it? Again, bike and pedestrian, I believe, is going to go at the end of their meeting. You know, county commissioners have adopted theirs to be at the end of the meeting. I personally like the end of the meeting because, again, if there's anything within the meeting, somebody wants to make a comment, they can make it at the end of the meeting. So I'm going to open the floor for discussion, and then we're going to need to take a vote to set our criteria as far as how we want to handle the public comment session of these meetings. And this would only be for our regular board meetings, not for our work sessions. Only the regular board, which we have 4 a year. So
Sabrina, do either of those have a cap on the number of people that they will accept?
No, but, and Foster, you can correct me if I'm wrong. It would only be people who pay the MSD tax would be able to make a comment. That was unclear to me.
Public comment is up to anyone who attends the meeting.
Okay, so it is not restricted to
That's
that.
correct.
Okay, I could
Can we
not.
restrict it?
Cannot be restricted.
Can we ask that they say if they're a taxpayer, domestic taxpayer?
Hello, Scott.
You can ask the question, they don't have to respond to that.
Okay.
I mean, I'm okay with it, but isn't it double entry or duplication of efforts? Because I mean, the whole point of, we're just a committee that sends it over to Prill, to Alderman Prill and everybody else. And their opportunity to talk is at that meeting. I mean, it seems like,
Public comment is public comment, so it's given anyone who wants to come to this meeting. They don't have to live in this MSD area, they don't have to do business here, but if someone wants to participate and wants to speak about anything or add their 2 cents, they're more than welcome to do it for the amount of time that this committee decides upon in their criteria.
Well, I assume that if we adopt a rule, we could turn around and change it after the first meeting if we don't like that.
Fair enough, but, I'd like to be consistent and
Yeah.
put it in place,
No,
but it's.
I'm just thinking kind of along the lines of what Johnny said, that first, we are not an elected board, whatever, we're an advisory, so we're the same restrictions. Would we be subject to the same restrictions? Or, I mean, that might be a question for Scott Davis. Can we just say, if you live in the MST district and want to talk, we'll give you 4 minutes. If you don't live in the MST district, you're not really relevant to this group.
Yeah, that's not gonna apply here. You need to, let's look at the basic thing. Public comment for this meeting. This meeting is open to anyone that wants to come, and it should be open to anyone, it will be open to anyone who wants to say there's 2 or 3 minutes or whatever you choose to do. So let's, don't add a bunch of things that we're gonna have to back out of.
The aldermen have already agreed to have public comment at these meetings, so we kind of have to find it.
it's just a matter of what.
Yeah, the only thing I can say in the resolution, so again, the resolution is, the resolution, all it says is the MSD Advisory Committee shall provide at least 1 period for public comment at each regular meeting. The MSD committee may adopt reasonable rules governing the conduct of the public comment period. So to me, a reasonable rule would be, you're the public, you have a vested interest, in the MSD. Could we not restrict it and just say the MSD taxpayer should have a voice and be able to make public comment for a certain amount of time? It doesn't say any citizen can make public comment. It talks about the MSD committee may adopt reasonable rules. I don't know if that word reasonable rules.
I don't know that that's reasonable. We don't check IDs at the door for anyone to attend this meeting. You need to treat it the same way for public comment.
And isn't there a larger legislative backdrop to all this about
So,
open meetings? and
That's correct,
which-
yes.
Without having an attorney, Scott, here to
That's
tell
correct.
us. I think that's
Yeah, I think
what,
with-
the aldermen don't say that in the resolution, but everything has to fit within the legislative framework for
Yeah, and
a legal
understood.
rule.
With trying to restrict someone from speaking if they don't pay an MSD tax or a business owner or whatnot, I think that's going to be too restrictive. And we can get the attorney to weigh in on that, but I have a feeling I'm correct on that.
And the other question is, should the attorney be here? Should we start thinking about that?
Are you requesting an attorney to
Well,
be here?
not requesting, but asking, should they?
What would be the reason?
I don't know, I'm asking you.
Yeah, I would say no. I would say no, because the purpose of this committee is to discuss potential projects to recommend. So you're not making any rules or anything like that that's going to affect what goes on in the district itself.
A couple of things we can do. So, because of course at the Board of Aldermen, we ask each person to state their name and their address. So I believe that we would be able to ask the person to state their name and their address. So that will tell us immediately if they're within the MSD or not. So when we're considering their comments. Second of all, and what the Board of Aldermen have adopted is that although the board is interested in the comments, Speakers should not expect any comments, action, or deliberation from the board on any issue raised during the public comment period. We can certainly adopt that, so we're giving people voice, we just don't have to react to it. And I know sometimes it's frustrating, you can sit up there and somebody's fussing you out, and you want to say something back, but sometimes it's better to just let them say their piece and let them speak what they want to say and not respond to that at that point or at a different point. We can certainly address it.
Yeah, I personally welcome the input. I mean, one of the
Yes.
things, it's just time restraint. It's one of the
Exactly, I
biggest
think
things.
it's our time.
Most people in
We
this
all have other
room-
things we're doing.
Yeah.
We want to keep these meetings as efficient as possible.
I would
I would
say-
suggest a shortest time period possible for each speaker.
Yeah, and also I would add to it, let's put it at the end, and frankly, I
Yes.
mean, we've already hit quorum. If I've got to go, I've got to go. I'm getting up and leaving. I mean, I'm not trying to be rude to anybody. But
That was
if,
my other concern.
Yeah.
For having it at the end, are we dragging on and on and on? If our meetings are a set time limit, it gets cut off when our meeting ends.
and how does somebody leaving affect quorum is the other question. So if I've got to go, for an hour and a half, 2 hours, it turns out to be a 3-hour meeting.
I kind of like 2 periods, one before and one after, but limit them to maybe no more than 5 and no more than 10, or no more than 2 minutes apiece. That way, you have, because sometimes people think of stuff as we're discussing, and that could help, And
So I was
then
thinking at
sometimes
the
people come
end,
in.
especially with our agenda is public, so there's public information out there. At the end, it just allows them to hear the discussion prior to that may have answered a question or kept them from even making public comment because their issue has been resolved because they heard the full discussion. And then so for people who just want to come and say their piece for no other reason, and it has nothing to do with the agenda. Now, again, I'm thinking out loud as the county commissioners, how they set their criteria is they allow public comment at the beginning of the meeting if it is specifically for an agenda item, specifically. If not, it's at the end of the meeting and they can say.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
That could
would
be, a way to look at it. That's just another
Yeah.
alternative.
I mean, I'm just thinking out loud, I would say 3 minutes at the end of the meeting would be a good starting point, personally.
It's longer than you think. I know when you think about it, 4 minutes, I used to think, 4 minutes is nothing, but,
That's what I'm
I would
thinking, 2
recommend
minutes.
3. Other boards I've been on, we limited always to 2.
yeah, the bike and pedestrian have done 3.
If you can't get it out in 3 minutes, you're back on. So,
Okay, so step 1, then we've decided that our time limit is going to be 3 minutes, is that correct? And,
can we go
First
to
meeting.
okay, we'll make a motion, a total motion, but let's just get some notes. So the time limit will be 3 minutes. Okay. What
That's
other
per
criteria?
speaker.
And
Yes, per speaker, that is
I
correct.
do like, at the beginning, restricted only to agenda items, and then the end could be open, because you probably aren't going to get that many.
And remember, this is just going to be for our regular meetings, not for our workshops, just our regular meetings.
Can we make it per address? So like while people are doing Steve live together, I might not want to hear from both of them.
Sometimes I say, get out.
I don't know,
When he says
I'm just
that to
thinking-
me.
I don't know if it's a big issue right now, but I'm just thinking, just try to compress time and everything.
Their address won't always indicate whether they're in the MSD either.
Right, because they could be a
own
business
property.
owner.
I live in Trent Woods.
Right, but the MSD taxpayer is the property
Sure.
owner, not the business owner, so that.
But are we going to specifically ask for their residential address? Or?
Well, that's the way it works within City Hall. You give your residence address, and sometimes we have people from Trent Woods that own businesses in New Bern, but they still give their Trent Woods address because they're here speaking on a certain topic that affects them, but that's their resident. I believe you always give your residential address, isn't that correct?
Correct, yeah.
Because that's where you pay taxes. in
I think it
essence.
would be nice to know from Scott whether we can ask if they are a property owner in MSD. Because again, like, a number of people on this committee are not residents of the MSD, but are property owners, and I think that's relevant. But I also would understand if you said they can't do that.
Seems like they would volunteer that right up front.
Right.
Anybody who really wanted to be listened to would say,
Well, definitely carries
Yeah, I
greater
live-
weight
yeah.
for the most part.
Sure.
It's your tax rate.
Well, how
so
about
even if Scott says no, I think most people would offer that up front, right?
You would hope.
in good
Yeah,
faith.
I believe you.
Yeah.
You know, what
Hope
is your
springs
connection to
eternal.
wanting to even be at the meeting? So, yeah, so is it that you live here, you have a business here, what's your interest here? So maybe that would be how you would present it versus an address. You could give your address, you could give
I just think
your-
for the official record, that's the idea. It's the official minutes of the record just states this person. Now, within their talk, they could say, I'm here because, you know, this impacts what I do, or, you know, I live here and I think downtown is wonderful and I want it to be this, that, or the other. I don't know, I'm just using that as an
It
example.
could be someone who is just very well versed on what they do, like David, and they come because they're like, hey, you know, I got a little something I can enlighten you with.
That's right.
You know,
And that's a
would be
good
great.
thing.
I mean, so.
But they still should give their address, so it's just for the
Okay.
record, so we know. Are they here from Baltimore, or are they here from Newburgh? You know, again, I just think it's pertinent. I mean, that's officially how it's done at the Board of Aldermen. And I think we're following that based on the statute and what they wanted to do.
I would kind of prefer that we only have a comment at one time during the meeting. Again, we want these meetings to be as efficient as possible.
I agree.
I agree.
We can try to keep them to an hour. I mean, the more we're extending, so either at the beginning or the end, but I really recommend we not do it both.
I would lean toward the end, as you said, if, you know, something comes up and people have brilliant ideas to share with the group, then, you know, input's valuable, good.
Would these be comments before we vote on anything?
No.
So we would still.
It's just public
We
comment.
would just vote and do our thing, and then we'd hear what people have to say, and then what if we go?
Because our
"Oh,
vote
gosh."
isn't binding. That's the thing. No matter what we vote on, they still have an opportunity to go to a Board of Aldermen meeting, to express their concern, call the
they meet
alderman,
with the
whatever. They
alderman.
have other outlets. What we do here is not final by any means.
Yeah, that's why I was asking what I was asking.
Yeah.
I just didn't know, yeah, okay.
I think we should just keep it simple. I mean, I don't think we're that
No.
important in
We're not
the
that
scheme of
important.
things. Just end of the thing, 3 minutes, name and address, boom, done.
No,
Don't
number of
try to
people.
add a bunch of restrictions on it.
Yeah, do we want to put a restriction on the number of people or like the amount of time total?
Well, what about 1 minute before, 1 minute? Because if you come with something specifically on a restricted item on the agenda, you have 1 minute, and then at the end, they got 3 minutes. So they still have 4 minutes. But you got one before and
There'd be
3
a lot
after.
more time.
If you have 5 people speaking, you got 20 minutes right there, you know, up to 12 by the time they. And usually when the 4-minute buzzer went off or the 3-minute buzzer went off, people are still talking.
People are encouraged, I mean, people
Yes.
can still send email.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so they could send an email like Maria did, so that it will be considered by us before the meeting.
But it would not be considered public comment.
Correct,
That's the only
but-
thing. Yeah, but that's true.
I
That would
mean,
not-
that's one
yes.
way if you want to be sure
Yes.
that what you have to say is heard before any discussion or vote.
Okay, so
Vicki, I'll let your idea.
we would
I
have
like
to,
what you said, 3 minutes at the end. State your address.
You can always tighten up later if we need.
so it, you know, we have this meeting today, so we will vote on this and we will then, at the end of the meeting, I was trying to get it all in today, as the officer asked me to. But our next meeting won't be till August because we're on a quarterly basis. So that will be the next time we would have public comment. So we will have a brief public comment today based on our criteria. And then we would go from there. Just so everybody understands, because we will have some workshops going forward. So I just want everybody to understand. Okay, so I'll need a motion, please. Based on what we talked about.
Okay, I move that we, our policy for public comment be at the end of meeting, stating their name and address, 3 minutes per speaker with no other restrictions at this point.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second to that motion?
Second.
Tony Robinson seconds. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, then we will let stand as number 7, as we see on our agenda, public comment. Okay? All righty, thank you so much for the discussion. Okay, we are now going to have the Dave show. The Dave trash talk.
Believe it or not, I scaled this back. So,
Oh, man, that's like trash.
yeah, let's talk trash. You'll see.
Trash talk.
So first I want to thank Lynn Harrigan for helping facilitate some of the meetings. She got the folks with GFL over here as well as George Childs, and then also a meeting with Bill Falkenberry and Dave Griffith at MBF. So first thing here I have, of course, the far side always has some good advice, and beware of what's around the corner. We never know, we might have some truculence here. So, there are a lot of, whenever you go into some type of construction, there are always some challenges, so beware of that. And I just kind of brainstormed on a few things and jotted them down when we're approaching what we should do with the trash there in the inner core. Thoughtful design approach to dumpsters on city-owned property, so we can focus on that. We know we have some control over that, so let's worry about that, and that's the location near Morgan's. Some sort of a masonry enclosure would be a good idea, because y'all have probably seen these trash enclosures that are the last minute, and as George Charles mentioned, it usually goes to low bidder, and they throw out something that really can't withstand the type of wear and tear that they're subject to. In our discussions, George mentioned there might need to be a covered enclosure, but with the compactor, those are kind of self-contained units, so that may not be an issue, but still, with those, you have some spillage when people throw them in there, and that still may be a concern. Some height considerations, because when the truck comes to back up and pull that compactor on it to replace it out, it does come up quite high, and there's a schematic on here that shows that. And it has to be large enough to accommodate the compactor and associated equipment. It'll need electric service, we'll need water, maybe some drainage considerations, health department considerations. There may be a tree there that we may lose, or maybe even more. The dumpster truck flow, room for expansion. One of the beautiful things about a compactor is that that compactor will reduce the frequency that the trash needs to be picked up now. Now it's being picked up, I think, 6 days a week, and they felt like it could be reduced down to 2 days a week. And then even with that, if more businesses come in there that require trash service, they can just increase the capacity by increasing the services. So, and then who's using it, who will pay for it, and who is paying right now, and then access control. But these are some things that go into the detailed design. And bottom line, exclamation, it won't be cheap. You know, this is dealing with any kind of construction in the city. You have all these things underground that we don't know. We can get a better handle on it with survey and so forth, but even with surveys, sometimes when you start construction, you don't know, and you got to deal with these things. So you got to keep those in mind. What we got here, thanks to folks over at GFL, they took some pictures of some existing enclosures. This is at Proximity Apartments, a masonry enclosure with some robust gates there. Something to point out that they mentioned was, when we're doing the design, make sure we have adequate slope for that chute that's going into the compactor. This is not adequate. They said it's supposed to be 40%. I think this is something like 17%. And that's why they have this hole here, because things get hung up there and they have to push things into it. So some of that detail stuff we have to worry about. And when I was thinking about this, when we get it, if we go to this and do go into a detailed design, there may need to be some sort of a design that incorporates a ramp up to it so that this is high enough so that you can get that slope.
And you run the trash can up there.
Yeah. And this is at Carolina Colors, again, a brick or a stone facade, masonry construction. And you can see this has a bump out, and you'll see the concept that David Griffith came up with takes into account not only the compactor, but also a place for the recycled materials. And then I just did an aerial view of the city-owned property where we're focusing, just so you can kind of see what we're dealing with in this general location. And then here is the, from the concept plan showing the city-owned property, and I just labeled that is no longer city-owned property. But, and then here is the concept C that we said we should focus on the city-owned property using concept C as sort of our inspiration. Something else that came up in meeting with Bill Falkenberry, he said, I would really like to meet with the MSD Advisory Committee to give some of the background that went into some of these designs. So that's something that we should probably consider
Right.
as we move forward.
Yeah, because it does, of course, we know that concept C with the trash cans does intersect onto private property, both of the suggested locations. So, is that, and we thought about it's easier to maybe deal with 2 property owners than it would with 10 property owners. So that's one of the things we need to consider.
This is a spec sheet for the compactor that they recommend, and I clouded the one. You can see it's just over 23 feet long and self-contained. They have a deodorizer in it, so it'll help with smells and so forth. And like I said, it's self-contained, so all the liquids and everything stay in there. And when they change it out, they change out the whole thing. And they take it and dump it and then bring either another one back or the same one. I'm not exactly sure, but there's a period of time where there will not be anything there, but it's a quick turnaround supposedly. And they probably do it during times when it's not going to be used.
So it'd be nice to know what that turnaround is.
Yeah, I remember
For the restaurants,
it was pretty quick, and that's something those are some of the details to get into later.
Yeah, maybe, well, they probably wouldn't work on Sunday because they don't have a pickup on Sunday. But, it's either early morning or late, and again, you gotta keep it within their time. They just have to be notified. The restaurants know, then they won't dump.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's just, as long as you know what the time frame is.
And then that's what it looks like when the truck picks it up, as I mentioned, that the height constraint, which I don't think we have any issues back there that we have to worry about. And looking at one of the trees back there, we're like, well, you know what, that tree's going to go if it goes in this particular location. But I don't think we have any overhead wires or anything like that to deal with. I did this, one of these for a hospital in Norfolk, and as an afterthought realized, oh crap, we've got some overhead wires and things we've got to deal with. So. And this is the schematic that David came up with. Here we have the compactor and cardboard. He's showing it open on one side. That's not to say that it has to be that way, but if we were limited with space, that may be an option to have to fit it in there. And then, of course, you could landscape or do some other material there. Maybe that is a wood fence, privacy fence or something.
Dave, I have a question where the chute is. And you were saying it needs to get more angle to it. My concern would be, how high does it have to be to get the angle? Because the problem is, you got these kids, basically, who are lifting up the trash, and if it's too high, it's gonna fall. And then it's gonna break, and they're gonna leave it all on the ground, and that's the problem. I mean, is there a way to, I don't know, get it?
Yeah, I mean, we could grade it, bring the ground up, and maybe we could bring,
Something like that.
And then maybe we bring the compactor down some also. So a combination of those details, I think.
And I think that would be one of the most important things we have to look at, because we have to see who is actually using it.
Yeah.
And knowing that the majority of them are in a hurry, they don't think about it, they don't care, they're trying to get off shift, and they're just throwing trash. I mean, am I correct?
You know, it could- it
When
could
the
be-
restaurant people would be.
You could do something where there is some sort of a lift there also. You know, but that's just another automated thing.
Right, and more
to break.
expensive.
Yeah,
I think a
exactly.
logical solution would be to have a ramp that starts from where the compactor is accessed.
Exactly.
You could have it ADA compliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's like 30 feet, 20
Wheel it
feet.
up.
Right.
Yeah,
Or
and
just
it's
high enough
easier
to
to
get
do
the
it,
trash
yeah.
can into.
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, well, that way too, I mean, don't you, do y'all take restaurants, would you wheel it out, would you cart it out anyway?
Yes, in most cases, depending on the length of distance you have to go, and some of them, depending where this is gonna be, well, think about coming from the back of Poppy's or the back of yours, if it's all the way over on the other side of the property.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
always different.
You would have some kind of wheeled thing. I know at the Chelsea and like Cow Cafe, they have a cart, and they put the bags on top of the cart and then wheel them over. But then the young people still have to toss them, and they have to toss them into the top, and invariably it breaks. Because somebody didn't double bag.
Yeah. Or there's broken glass.
Correct.
So the next slide, I took both the existing conditions and the concept C, and I just overlaid where it might go. You'll see this version on the screen is slightly different than what you have, because I realized I didn't put the truck turning radius on there. So you can see how it would, but yeah, the truck could probably maneuver and not go into that parking. So there, and then this could be angled a little bit more, but I just wanted to give an idea of what some of the constraints might be there with this. And I slapped a block in there that represents the length of that truck. Okay. And then here's how it fits with option C, which you see it doesn't fit very well, but that's what we've got. And option C was it's a concept, so open to modification, and
I don't,
if we need to accommodate that.
just out of curiosity, I don't know why you wouldn't put it in the same location and the truck could come up. You might lose 1 or 2 parking spaces here, but back up, and leave it right in that same spot. Truck comes in, backs up, goes out.
The more we bring it down, though, then the more difficult it's going to be for that truck to make that turn. That's why I angled it, and also trying to keep it on city property. Whereas if, I think that,
Oh, I see what you said, city property, city. Yeah.
this line here, because the city property crosses through those parking spaces. So it could come down some more, but yeah, I mean,
But when we made the recommendation before to pursue C, one of the items was that we only had to negotiate with one property owner.
If
And
we
they
did
would be-
one, but if we did both things, it would be the 2 property owners.
Well, I'm just thinking that that's just Morgan's. And
John Robert.
they may or may not be willing to allow the dumpster.
yeah.
And also take into account, there's no guarantee that the city wants to continue to be in the trash business for that area as well.
But what so Foster, that's a question then. So if the city wasn't in the trash business, somebody has to be in the trash business.
That's right.
GDL would be their own provider.
That's right.
GFL
GFL.
would be their own provider. So we, as individual businesses, would have to just negotiate with them versus, so what would change though? It would not be on city
Yeah,
property?
It would not be on city property, and so that's why over the years, as you well know, we've talked to some folks about moving it to different areas, dumpsters to different areas. Hate to see it go back to where each resident, each business has their own cans and things, but what we have seen with the city is, the way this is now, if there's a spill, there's a mess, it's up to Public Works to clean everyone else's trash up, and we're kind of tired of doing that. We shouldn't have to do that. Now, granted, those who use those dumpsters, they're paying the monthly fee for doing that. But if there are any, if the Board of Aldermen were to approve this plan where it would be on city property, and there's a way before we get to that, yeah, that'll be interesting to see how it goes. But our goal is to get out of the trash business, city-wise,
Foster
on this.
or anyone, the city hasn't always been in the trash
That's
business.
correct.
Right.
And there was some dissatisfaction among business owners and residents when the city got into the business, because you kind of told people, you will use the city, and you can't hire an outside contractor even if they're cheaper. Or at least that's my recollection. They use, and now I know, like, for residential, I guess, is in the tax bill for New Bern residents. I live in Brentwood, so we have to buy stickers and stuff, which is another story. But if the city gets out of the business, that hopefully opens it up to competition.
So let me rephrase it. The city works with GFL for residential and commercial pickup, but what I'm referring to is the dumpsters being on city property itself. That's what I'm talking about. That's the type of business we don't want to continue to be in. I don't see us getting out of dealing with GFL or any other provider for trash collection.
And the reason, because the city is the property owner is responsible for cleanup if there's an issue. That's right.
That's right. And as a matter of fact, it takes up existing parking spaces right now.
Well, I mean, that is.
Michael Lee has a question.
Sorry. Why can't each restaurant take care of their own? What's the problem with that?
Like, for instance, for Baxter's, we're completely landlocked. We have an egress out the back through Tom's Coins, little back building that we have permanent egress. But it was built in a way, it's only, we got a variance on it, it's just about 32, 34, 6, whatever it has to be.
Okay.
And it's got gas lines out there too. So it's not really wide enough to have those big GFL trash cans pull through in and out. We're required to have these doors as well, so it kind of impedes.
That's what you need. You need
And
a
so
big green
having
can.
it on the city property really helps us, to be honest, because we don't
Yeah,
have any
keep your
land.
trash.
Where would we put our,
Okay.
trash cans? And how many would we need, and where would all those go?
And if you notice on Middle Street, you don't ever see trash cans on the street. You don't see those big carts on the street, because we all park, and which I think is attractive. You don't have to come down the street every day and see trash cans in the street like you
Yeah,
do
like
in
at BTN.
neighborhoods.
Right,
You see them
Mullet
in the
Street, we
one.
have to drag ours out
Eight-
to the street
eight
every
cans.
Right, so they're behind Pepsi store, we have no back door, and we're locked in as well. So we pay into the unified trash,
Right, right,
and we
right.
go there and do that. Poppies, having that in the back there is just unsightly for the people that are eating at Morgan's, and it's the smell, and, we're trying to develop that back area to be very user-friendly and walkable and safe, and when you have dumpsters back there, so the idea of consolidating into one dumpster,
Right,
and
okay.
we did that behind the Chelsea, as you know, back there, and that made it really nice having that centralized dumpster back there.
It was always dirty. I mean,
really-
it was
Again,
always
it's
filthy
true.
back there.
Yeah.
So,
So one question I've got, if we're gonna run power, theoretically, if you did a compactor and you had to have power and all that good stuff, lighting, what about security cameras? We come back to that. So that way, if somebody does trash it, you know who trashed it. You know,
And make them responsible.
hey,
for
that
it.
was Billy Bob from Bond's place.
Yeah.
Let's call Vaughn and get that guy in trouble.
Right.
And we
I
thought
wouldn't
about
mind that.
codes,
I wouldn't mind
and we
that.
wouldn't mind that either. We thought about codes,
Trash
because what's
security.
happened is
Just
the
kinda-
Trentwoods people who have to buy stickers don't want to buy stickers, and they bring their trash in the car. We witnessed this. And they get out early in the morning and throw it into the dumpster.
Yeah, and that is a feature.
You saw me doing that?
Yes, I
Maybe
did. Trentwoods
rotate
people.
it, every 3 months and
So
we-
you don't pay 10
RFIDs,
cents.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. Well, then you get into like
I
a
wanna-
key.
go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was saying with the RFID, it's kind of like another key, and in school, the bathroom keys are on a yardstick so you don't lose it. That kind of thing. Codes are much more efficient.
Yeah.
We've got a powerful contradiction going on here. And we need to invite Solomon to our next meeting.
Yeah.
Because we, the city doesn't want to be in the trash business, but the city doesn't want to see hundreds of individual cans on the curb either. And if the city won't allow, I mean, I'm not Solomon, so I'm not telling you got an answer. But if the city doesn't want a dumpster on their property, then we got a problem, because then Baxter's is gonna start putting it's gonna be like New York City. You got piles and piles of trash bags on the curb when they're, you'll store it in the basement until it's,
Definitely.
we don't have basements.
Well, we have a basement.
Okay.
Well, but John, you're assuming that the private property owners in the inner core are not going, somebody that won't volunteer to allow their property to be used to locate a dumpster. That's another option.
It is.
And it needs to be pursued.
I'm thinking it'll be hard to find that volunteer, but also you have
Yeah.
easement issues then as well to get the trucks back
But the
there.
property owners need to address the problem that is being created by themselves or their tenants.
I agree, and I'm not speaking for anyone, but if I'm the owner of Morgan's, I'm not, then I might say, well, heck, if the city's taking their dumpster away, I got no choice but to get a dumpster. But I don't want to clean up Von's mess, so it's going to be my people and my people only. That's, I think, where you're
Yeah,
headed.
they've got locked dumpsters, so
Yeah.
they're the only ones with the key.
I mean, that's why I say we need Solomon.
The biggest problem is the cleanup.
Yeah, hence,
Right, this
hence,
stuff.
why should I allocate resources for various departments to have to go and clean up because someone couldn't put the trash in there correctly? And whether it was a business or if it was just someone randomly driving through to throw their trash in the dumpster, at the end of the day, we still get the call for that, and it occurs on a regular basis.
Were you
But
saying
you
that we-
understand what I'm saying,
I
that
do.
the private
I do.
citizen doesn't want that responsibility of
Yeah.
cleaning up everybody else's mess
That's right.
either.
That's right.
Were you
So-
saying that we pay them in the monthly for the cleanup though?
No, you don't pay.
There's not anything in that monthly?
No,
Okay.
you're paying
paying
for GFL to take that trash off. There's no additional fee for city staff to go in there and clean up after the.
I think with the camera thing could be the hitch there, because if it was my employee and they were caught on camera doing it, you better believe I would correct that, and then I would have them out there cleaning it, or some of my staff would be out there. And that would thus
Yeah,
say.
and then that just goes back around to allocating more resources for staff to have to look at the camera and go back and determine who that person is and where they work and things like that. And that's just something the city does not need to be. We have
There's
other
other
priorities.
issues to deal with.
That's right. We have other priorities to deal with than that.
Okay.
Well, and another idea, I just thought about, it was just an idea for it, right? So anything's on the table. City gives some of the land to a nonprofit entity that is comprised of an association of all of these property owners on the inner core. And based off square footage or of acreage or whatever your size is, you want a percentage of that. And then they're responsible for it. That gets it off your hands and then puts it back in somebody else's responsibility.
And vice versa, private property owners can do the same thing.
Yeah, or it could just be an easement, so they're not transferring any property. And
Yeah.
that easement agreement
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
include the rights to utilize that trash collection, but also the responsibility for cleaning it up.
Maintaining it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could just be a straight contract. I don't think you need an easement or anything. The city says, we're gonna provide you a trash service, we're gonna charge you for that, and, almost like, we're charging you rent, and add to that the cost of cleanup. And, if we have to come once a week with a pressure washer and clean it up, that costs us X amount of dollars, and we have this many people who are using the service, and we're splitting it. And I understand it gets complicated, because if you have, Morgan's may generate 3 times the trash
Exactly.
that Baxter's does, and so maybe they need to pay 3 times as much, but,
Okay, I'm gonna let Michael Lee wanted to say something, and then I'm gonna somewhat wrap this up, because I'm supposed to keep everybody on time today, and we have one more presentation, so I wanna kind of get to Michael Lee, you had
It's
comments.
just an off-the-ball thing, but when I was in Venice, Italy, all these people who live on these islands in Venice, at the crack of dawn, they're taking their garbage to the waterfront, the boats come, they take everybody's garbage off the islands, and there you go, and they do it every morning. So if everybody, what if all your garbage ended up out on the street, the truck comes through, they pick it up at 4 a.m.,
But again, you put it out the night before, and then you've got people who are walking our town in the evening, and it is,
It was a very efficient thing over there, and it was like
And they're, I think they're
clockwork.
conditioned for that. I don't
Yes.
think-
Yes, they are.
Yes.
There's all kinds of other issues with where their products are recycled and everything else, so it's- you can't compare that.
really
That's
can't.
kind of what the New York City system is. You put it out on a certain day, they come pick it up, but then all you're doing is relocating the mess that the city has to
Exactly.
clean up, and it's going from the
Right, so it's not
parking
there.
lot to
to the
the
sidewalk.
sidewalk. And
Okay.
because the
Well,
bags
right.
break and leak, and
And
you
it's
got.
putting it right by the storm sewer, where then it's going
Right,
to
so
the
it's-
server.
Okay, so a couple of takeaways.
And I think at the end of the day, I think everyone agrees that the goal is to beautify that parking lot and the connectivity over to Bear Plaza. But there is the trash issue that's gonna have to be dealt with, and I don't think it's gonna be an overnight solution. I mean, it's gonna take several of these things.
I think, so the takeaway from today and your presentation, thank you, Dave, you did an excellent job. I really believe we all think that a compactor is the way to go. So I think if we made one decision, that will be a larger capacity, not have to be emptied as often. So that helps us in knowing what the spatial requirements are for that. I think what we need to do, and the question is going to be, but where? And that will impact how we move forward on the redevelopment of our property in that area, which is extremely important, I think, to many of us and to our visitors and everything like that. So I'd like to, we've got this, I think everybody really needs to get in their brain waves about where it can go. And we potentially, between now and our next workshop, I think our workshop needs to come back to the inner core and continue to have those discussions. So our next workshop, because this is so important and it's going to take, I think, many brainstorming sessions. But we probably need to now go to the private property owners we identified, which was Andy Schiff and Brody and John Robert, because we looked at those areas. Is there anything we can do there? Understanding that if they lose parking, where can we replace that parking, and how do we do that? So it's a win, as Andy Schiff told me, he just wants a win-win for everybody. He doesn't want one person to bear anymore. So is everybody okay with that? Because we could beat this, we could really discuss this for a long time, and I do want to get
I have
information.
one other question. You talked about putting a lid on it. How high would that need to be? Sweep it?
Well, I really don't think it will, with the, that was just something that came out. But with a compactor, everything being contained there, I don't feel like it would be.
Okay. All right, thank you, everybody. And Jake, thank you, you did a great job. I really appreciate your detailed information. Okay, Foster, you want to introduce our Assistant Public Works Director for the
Yes.
discussion on the crosswalk upgrades. We talked about this the last time. Again, another low-hanging fruit we talked about being able to achieve.
Yeah, so I've asked David Fisher, our Assistant Director of Public Works, to come today, and they have gathered some information on crosswalks, and so he's going to present some options. So David, come on up, and you should all have some information in front of you.
Hi, nice to meet everyone. My name again is Dave Fishel, Assistant Director of Public Works. My wife and my kids accuse me of being long-winded, so I create a little outline, keeping on task here, so I don't go off telling you stories that I happen to find fascinating, especially in my career, what I do here. But anyway, I'll go over quickly the background of what I think I'm here today, what I know about that. Some of the products that we looked at, again, the background being a brick pattern pavement for pedestrian crossings, the products that provide that desire, and then the all-important cost of some of these. And I think just listening to my first meeting here, you guys are probably pretty familiar, most of you here are familiar with construction and probably some design and design methods in public infrastructure. So you probably also know that there's always three factors in every single project, involving public infrastructure. You've got cost, you have schedule, and you have quality. Right? And it's easy to control one. We can always control one of those. If you're really on the ball and you're paying attention, you can control two of them, but you can never control three. It's just not a reality. So we do a lot of upfront work, and a lot of upfront planning, and looking at stuff, trying our best to get control of those two factors. Again, the background side, the focus here, we have the downtown, the MSD area. We're looking at the downtown historic district. The goal, I think, is pedestrian safety. We want to improve some of our crossings down there, but we also want to do that in an aesthetically pleasing method, and something that really enhances that downtown atmosphere. So what I was asked to do was look at 6 intersections, one running down Pollock Street and one running down South Front Street, 3 running down South Front Street. There's a detail I'll show you in some of these handouts. You should all have handouts. 2 of them are going to be from the project, from the product providers, and one at the end is a little exhibit of the intersections we looked at and a planning level cost estimate on what that's going to take. Now again, looking at companies trying to find products that can perform this, Foster, he found paveway systems out of Florida, and we, in the public works side, we jumped on the wide world of Google and found and looked at several other companies, spent some time to narrow it down to 2. One is the paveway systems. They're out of Florida, and the other is Pattern Paving out of Fort Mill, South Carolina, which is just outside of Charlotte. So the first one will be the paveway systems. This is, they call it a pattern pavement overlay. It's a proprietary product. To me, it was very similar to a chip seal, but not your black tar and rock. This is an epoxy adhesive that they lay down, and then they have this colored aggregate. They can all do many different colors. They lay the aggregate on top, and that bonds it to the surface of your pavement. They can they put down a stencil pattern for a brick, and they'll lay that chip seal. They'll lay that pattern down, and they'll pick up the stencil, and you'll see it in the pavement. The brochure, they had a really detailed brochure there. You can see all the different techniques and aspects with it. It's pretty neat, honestly, looking at some of these systems. My part, all these companies have great marketing, great sales force, so everything seems amazing. My job is, let's see if we can start looking at the chinks in the armor here and see what makes sense and what doesn't for what we want. And I was kind of skeptical with this, but the more and more I looked into it, it really seems like a good product. They're actually going to send us some samples next week, so I'm going to drop that off to your office if you want to, meet again and pass that around of some of their items. But one benefit that I liked is the prep work's pretty minimal. Now, if you have good pavement and your intersections doesn't have a lot of patching and a lot of disrepair, a street sweeper, some power washing, and they can apply. They're ready to go. I will also stress, though, looking at some of the intersections, we may also want to consider repaving. One of the other product does require that, because last thing you want to do is spend all this money on this beautiful intersection, and a week later you're digging it back up to make a repair. So we really want to, think about some of that outside work. Again, they do have a broad variety of patterns. Their installation can be completed at night. All these contractors, they almost exclusively work at night. They're working in these very similar downtown neighborhoods, high pedestrian areas, high business districts. They're used to it. Once this product is placed and installed, it's a 3-hour cure time. You need to have traffic on it. So it should be, I don't know how many intersections I could do it one night, but that should not, affect business downtown. Being a proprietary product for paveway systems, they have their own in-house installers. And it enhances their quality. It's EQC, better control. However, one thing to think about there is if we do have a minor patch that we need to make, we aren't able to buy that product. We can't use our own forces to make these small repairs. We'd have to think about how that's going to look, trying to bring them up to make those. The durability, 8 to 10 years. Most of these products are that same time frame. I really couldn't find a difference in many of those, which is pretty much the life of your asphalt pavement. So by the time you're ready to repave, this product too is ready. Would need to be replaced regardless. Paveway systems, they've done several projects in North Carolina. Their DOT approved. The DOT has actually used them on a bridge project in Columbia, North Carolina, on a bridge that I can't pronounce the name, it's pretty long. But they did a big brick pattern on their sidewalk. They're kind of, the DOT, remember, that's kind of the gold standard product. If you've been approved at that level, you're pretty legitimate. High Point and Asheboro, they've also had some municipal projects in those communities. The second was pattern paving out of Fort Mill. Pattern paving is a thermoplastic bonding, pavement marking, which is what's being used on most of our streets in town. It's a thick, high-density plastic that they melt onto the pavement and adheres to the pavement. It's got glass beads in it for reflectivity. It's got some sand on the top of it for skid resistance. However, my own personal experience, Walmart, their thermo crosswalks right in front. When I'm walking across in flip-flops after a rain, I've about slipped and taken myself out a few times. So I think about that with stop bars, with these thicker crosswalks. Your motorcycles also have difficulty in wet conditions on that thermoplastic. So it's just another item to dig into more detail when they're trying to make a decision. They also have a broad variety of patterns and colors to choose. This thermo, the other big difference with pattern paving, they were going to require a new pavement, so we need to do at least a mill and repave 1 inch of asphalt in that intersection area. Then they will come in and reheat that asphalt, and they have a steel wire brick pattern that they'll lay down, and they use a plate tamper to form that into the asphalt layer. Then they have this thermoplastic, the brick in 4x4 sheets that they lay down, and they'll melt that thermoplastic into that asphalt. And they come back over with that mesh and reform that brick pattern. So there's a few more steps in that. There's more upfront prep work with the paving. Again, if when you think about the cost of intersection, you may want to repave a lot of these intersections anyway. They subcontract their work, so we would need to work with them to find local contractors nearby that could do that work. One of the benefits there, again, we may be able to do small patches. Our staff, we will train them up and take care of that, so we're not having to spend more expense when and if we do have to make some of these repairs. Durability is 8 to 10 years, similar to paveway systems. And pattern paving has completed projects in Greensboro, Durham, and the Raleigh areas. So they all seem very proven. They have a couple little differences in their style, but costs, if you look at costs, there's going to be a little bit of a difference there. Paveway systems is $15 to $17 per square foot. The last page is showing you on the cost breakdown with some basic items. There's the mobilization, the cost to bring them up here to house their people to get the work done. You've got traffic control. Even though at night you're going to need to take barricades and flaggers and handle that. But with the paveway system, you're looking at approximately $35,000 to $40,000 an intersection, and that would be to install a brick pattern crossing on all 4 legs with the white stripe, the white delineating stripes of that walkway. Pattern paving, the thermoplastic style, that's going to be a little more again with each intersection being milled and paved. You're looking at $50,000 to $60,000 an intersection. And depending on how many intersections we need to do or we want to do, the costs are all broken down in that detail. One question I did ask them was, there's going to come, what cost is it going to take to get you up here? If we want to do 1 or 2 intersections, is that enough? And it's debatable. They say possibly, but if they get a bigger project and it's a smaller deal, they may push us off. And that's that whole cost quality schedule scenario.
So you've all been to communities where they've had a stamp pattern before, and some of those things may have been painted and it wears out after 6 months. And this is not like this. On both products like this, they've got the color in there for 8 to 10 years, and that's a warranty on it. And so that's one of the biggest things that we're missing in our downtown, something that in our crosswalks that is defining. This is something for the committee to consider. If you would like for us to get more information or actually get some actual quotes from the companies, we can do that, but we just wanted to provide this information to see if you wanted us to move forward and get some more information on this.
One thing I wanted to add, you know, when you have intersections with storm drainage and sanitary sewer, that gives opportunities for places where the pipe breaks and then you have the undermining of the pavement and failure there. Did you talk to them about, or did they mention if you should slip line any utilities around those areas to give it more life?
That's going to be really a responsibility on the municipality. We would know the condition of our system in those areas. I think it would be some coordination with Water Resources in Jordan over there. We'll probably do a check with that and make sure there wasn't anything of concern. You know, but again, at the end of the day, it's very difficult. Buried pipe, buried structures. You never know what could happen.
That's something maybe there should be an assessment done before money's spent on this, you know what I mean? And so that cost is factored into this as well.
Yeah.
I have a question. We've got a lovely crosswalk in front of James Reed Lane right now that I believe is actual brick inlay. Has that been considered? Do you have any idea what the cost of doing true brick inlay versus the faux brick?
Yes. Well, yes and no. I don't have the cost with me. We have looked into that. It is higher. I mean, that I can't tell you it's going to be a higher cost. There are also inherent issues with brick pad crosswalks on higher traffic areas. Settling, popping out of the bricks, the front street roundabout, with truck traffic on there. We're constantly making repairs to those bricks. But most of the time, these are selected because it's cost effective.
We have talked about this as well. I think the biggest setback for me with installing actual brick, and it looks good in the areas we have. We've had more issues in front of the palace than any place else, but it's the time it's going to take to put that brick in, put the grout in there, and for it to cure out before vehicle traffic can come in. That's the issue, and whether it's done half the road at one time and then allowing traffic. So it's just working something like that out. But we could certainly get some prices on that as well.
Yeah,
Oscar, do we still have all that old brick that was taken up from the street? I mean, we had tons and tons of it.
We've got quite a bit of that. I can't tell you exactly how much, so, and staff can find that out for us.
We're saving that. We've got all that old original brick that was in the streets.
The entire intersection in front of the palace is a nightmare. But the crosswalk on Pollock is not a nightmare.
It was like it was done yesterday.
Mhm.
It looks
right.
the same as it was the day it was created.
I'd be curious to know, the magnitude of the cost difference. And I will say also that there are 2, I think, brick crosswalks on the 100 block of Middle Street that are pretty horrible. It's hard to tell if they're put in to be crosswalks or put in to be speed bumps. But they're.
And 90% of those it's the cost. It's the crosswalk, the good crosswalk you're talking about. I believe on that one, that's probably got a thick concrete base underneath it.
Well,
that supports that.
For that, that's a great point. And I would say if you're going to tell us what it would cost to do real brick, do it right. Don't do it like in front of the palace. I think that's a sand base that is settled and it's wobbly and it's.
Right, and so when we talk about projects like this, again, we don't have anything like this anywhere in the city. And so, yes, MSD would pay for something like this, but not necessarily if we have to tear asphalt out and repave. We repave other areas all the time, but we have to do any infrastructure in terms of pipes and things like that. That's nothing that the MSD would pay. We're talking about specifically the product or the brick or whatnot that's
Yeah.
installed for that. I'm sorry.
That's
Yeah.
right, Foster. When was that one done on Pollock Street? You don't know off the top of your head?
Find out.
That was done right around the time of the tricentennial.
So 14 years
2010.
ago?
Yeah.
Well, and then the second question to that is what would be the life cycle of that? Because you said these are 8 to 10 years in that ballpark. So if that's looking as good as it is in 14 years, what's it going to look like in 30 years? I'm wondering.
Well, that was like,
Might be better to spend our money on.
that was not great day one.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
And I think as we move forward too, these are not inexpensive projects, but I think we should move forward and get pricing and bring it back. We need to look at total packaging because there's money there, we need to spend it, but I'd like to see it spent as a conglomerate and borrow the money and do it that way and get many things done versus little cash here, little cash there, and not get a lot of
The
stuff
other
done.
thing that these do at a lower cost is it creates a visual that controls traffic. When
It does.
when you're driving down the road and you're not seeing a crosswalk or you're just seeing white stripes, that's not as visual. But something like this is clearly a different material.
Totally
And the
agree.
driver's going to go, oh, there's something there.
Just the aesthetics of it just defines our downtown and says welcome and
Yeah.
just,
Like Foster says, kind of low hanging fruit.
yes,
Yeah.
totally agree.
Is there any plan to consider additional crosswalks, like on Broad Street?
Well, this one would be Middle and Broad, there'd be
Yeah.
two, Middle and Broad and Craven and Broad, because that's where the MSD goes to. Well, if you look at the map, see at the top? Oh, yeah, see, that's Broad Street up there. So you've got, Pollock.
Sorry.
Okay,
That's
Front Street
Pollock.
is what you're saying.
Yeah,
Okay,
we
Front
really,
Street,
and we
Broad
do,
would
and
be
those
one.
are in the MSD as well, so
So
they
the
are.
Broad
in the-
Street, yeah, say that would be 9 intersections
what I
then
thought.
as opposed to,
Yeah, and it's always an option to expand the scope.
if that makes the
Yeah.
project more.
Yeah, I would say a project like this, do it.
That's right.
Don't take multiple bites at the apple, but
Yeah.
either do it or not. And I also think it should be considered to put it at the crosswalk at Bear Plaza. I mean, they got the sign out there, but I think that would look great there.
And the goal, if this came up before, the goal would be to put it on Craven Street as well. That way you've got crosswalks in the center at James Reed Lane, Bear Plaza, and then at the lot, parking lot as well.
Yeah, yeah.
What about, is there any kind of preference on an ADA perspective as to which type would be better, or is it all?
These, both are follow ADA compliance and they check the boxes there.
Related to these crosswalks, has the city given any consideration to putting in like walk, don't walk signs at some of these intersections? The traffic lights are not necessarily terribly visible to pedestrians, and the number of times that people start walking right when the light turns green and they're stepping in front of cars, it seems to be an issue in my experience. I don't know if anyone else feels that
Oh,
way.
it's all the time.
Drivers
Tourist
just
town.
don't even pay attention anymore, it seems
Oh, no,
like.
Most is not.
But they
Oh, there it is.
I mean, I would hate to have these huge, big flashing
Right.
things, but if there's something small and tasteful, that would be very nice.
I think one thing we see, because we've got that in at least two areas downtown right now, East Front Street, we've got one on Broad Street and Middle Street, and people don't use those half the time, and so
Yeah, but
sensor type would be great.
I'm not I don't use the flashing thing because that personally, I think it's obnoxious, but if the sign says don't walk, at least I know to look both. I mean, I might walk anyhow,
Mhm.
but I'm gonna be forewarned and look.
Yeah.
And I think right now we're expecting too much of the citizenry to try and figure out from the traffic lights
Yeah.
whether they can go or not go.
Yeah. And so citywide, the city does not have any of those. I think DOT may have some in an area or two. We do have one down at, I think we've got that down at Union Point
Well,
Park.
we've got
though.
those flashing lights, right, when you go
Yeah,
across
we've got-
Middle
we've got two
Street.
of those.
Yeah, so when you go, it flashes if somebody
Yeah.
walks into the intersection.
I think
No,
those
no
are
light
horrible.
yet on Foster?
Pardon?
No traffic light there yet?
No, but it.
Don't wanna spend my money.
You have an update on that?
They met with the contractor this morning at 10 to go over the electrical connection and hookup, and I haven't been in the office back, but they were coming with their schedule on the pool delivery. A lot of what controls the schedule is material, where the light pole or the signal poles. We also are looking at this signal is going to have an audible system tied into it. So that you mentioned, it's more for ADA than really controlling the crossing, but it will have noise beacons when you're allowed to cross.
What intersection is that?
Middle and Broad.
Middle and Broad.
We're right there at Chelsea, it's terrible. We've seen more accidents there, it's really a nightmare there.
Going back to this, one other question. Is there a preferential time of the year that you would install something like this? I mean, is it
These are mostly temperature, I think 50 degrees, if I remember correctly, was the lowest of the limit, which here we don't normally have too much concern, so it's pretty flexible.
and it cures pretty quickly, I would guess?
Yeah, the pattern pave, the kind of chip seal I talked about, that's a 3-hour cure time. The thermo, once it's about an hour after they pull out, you can drive on it, sets up pretty quick.
So,
Do you have a preference?
Not yet. I wanted to get it all out there, and I'm usually not the decision maker. I like to give you guys all of the information and
66 cents on the dollar is compelling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think both of them have advantages, but one thing I do like about the thermo is that it does have the reflectivity in there, which as cars are driving by there at night, it lights the area up a little bit, and the other does not have that. And that's always appealing.
Michael Lee has a question.
So the breakdown in 8 to 10 years, do we know what that looks like? I mean, what does that look like in 10 years?
You're essentially going to have thinning of the product. You'll still have the same, for the most part, you'll still have the same color pattern. You're going to get some, it won't be as bright because you're going to have traffic over it, fading, but.
Will it stain if somebody drops a drink, a
No,
soda,
no.
a milkshake?
I believe in one of those brochures, they were real proud of their snow and snow plow, which we don't have to worry about here, but the resistance to that. And where I came from up north, and I dealt with snow a lot, and that was what we liked about thermo. When the snow plow does run over it, it shaves just a little bit off of it and essentially peels back a new layer. You can do that multiple times. It's a very thick plastic, so you're keeping that bright color just by the plowing the road and the wearing of the product.
Okay, so in 10 years, we have to replace it and it costs whatever amount, X amount of dollars versus real brick, which we do, we don't think about it for the next 100 years.
We just
Right.
patch them, if it needs a new brick, put one new brick in. So
Yeah.
in that sense, at the 8 to 10 years, is it, redoing it all over again, or is it?
Yeah, when you think about it, you're gonna have to repave after 10 years.
Yeah.
So no matter what, if it lasted 20 years, it wouldn't do you any good because the pavement underneath it most likely would wear out before the product would. And then, I know several communities that were taking out their real brick sidewalks because of the issues they have with settling. And it's like all your installations will be a little bit different if they're using different contractors. And they like the uniformity of these other products to keep a better road base. And with the real brick, if you have water, you have a chance of water getting into the base of your road, which is the ultimate killer of your roads. If you get wet and water underneath there, your base starts to fail. So they'll get cracking, freeze thaw. You don't have to worry about it too much here, but you freeze thaw in there and you start popping out bricks. It's really been a headache to many communities with their existing brick crosswalks, unless they did the Cadillac and you had a concrete base, 4 or 6 inch concrete base, maybe more. You actually have concrete sidewall on it to kind of hold that brick into place. Towns that work, they would have a concrete running right down the crown of the road, the center line of the road, and concrete curb and gutter, and all boxes that brick in with concrete base.
The subgrades and everything.
Yeah. But you're talking, it's a very expensive road.
Is there any kind of like DOT or other types of grants that twin with this, so we don't pay 100% of the freight?
The only thing I could say is potentially, considering these are pedestrian crossings, maybe there's potentially safety grants. I wouldn't know of any. That's not on forte, but dealing with pedestrians and being a safety enhancement that we may have.
It might be worth bringing up.
Okay, does anybody have any other questions for Dave? What we'll do is, again, put this to a workshop. We're going to get Foster to get some of those numbers for us and see. And again, we're working on towards like a major project here and trying to do some things and really get some bang for our buck here. Let's go ahead now. We are at the point where we have public comment. So is there anyone that would like to make any public comment? You have 3 minutes and state your name and address for the record. We called it. Seeing none, let's move on to our next workshop date. Potentially, we could come back in 2 weeks and continue the discussion within the Morgan's area and parking as well. We got some information on parking from Lynn the last time she was here. We could just concentrate on the Morgan's lot area and try to see if we could solve something. Our next regular meeting, our advisory board meeting, is not till August the 20th. So we have between now and then to have as many workshops as we want or do everything. The other thing I have to mention, and Foster, I've talked a little bit to Kim about this, is, it is budget time, so the city's working on a budget. Of course, the MSD budget is included in that. I'm assuming that horrible word that MSD is not going to have a tax increase.
It will not.
Okay, so we don't need to discuss that. We will have a budget. I don't think we're going to be showing that we're going to be spending quote-unquote any money at this point. The beauty of what we'll do is that we'll make recommendations going forward to the Board of Aldermen, who would then vote on it and then make special appropriations with the city manager to move the money. So we don't have to necessarily have that in there. Is there anything else we need to do as an advisory group to discuss the budget or anything like that?
I don't think so. I think
Okay.
that it'll just be in the form of budget amendments as we go along throughout the year.
Like we did
for
with
any
the farmers
project.
market.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, so any ideas about when you'd like to see the next workshop?
Well,
You're on the books first.
Well, the 21st was when we were supposed to have our meeting, and then we moved it back to this because they have budget sessions.
how about Bill Falconberry? See if you can.
Yeah, I mean, that would be great. We could do, I'd like to do a whole workshop, go back to the Morgan's lot, doing workshops, really trying to start. Let's key in on some stuff. We're going to kick this can down the road. It'll be a year and we'll have not made any headway. We're getting information. We're understanding, what's back there. We're talking about compactors. We're talking about we're going to stay in the footprint. Do we really want to see where we can put these trash cans? Maybe we have to have a totally new idea. I don't know. Everybody needs to think about this because it's important. None of us can operate that have businesses back there. And the residents, before, the residents that lived in the condo, there was like 20 of those roll-out trash carts all there, and it looked terrible. So consolidated trash is the way to go, but wait. and this person on this business on this side doesn't want to walk over here. This one over here doesn't want to walk over there. We're going to have to just give some of that.
And then also some sort of an agreement with the city, so the city's not in the business of cleaning up.
Right, we understand, and I totally agree with that. We can definitely make that something that can work.
I'm out of town on the 21st.
And that's fine. I mean, that is a holiday. We can go into June. I'm just, throwing out dates. If you want to, we can look into June. That'll be fine.
I'm also
Again, we
gone.
like to have 2 hours. You're gone?
I'm gone the last 2 weeks of May.
Of May. Okay, so let's look into June then.
I'm wide open.
Can we do a Monday or a Wednesday, or is Tuesday, that's our day?
Mondays are hard. Because that's my payroll
I'm
day.
gone the first 2 weeks of June.
Because that's the only problem. Now we're going to get into
Yep,
summer
summer
vacation.
vacations.
And everybody's going to be,
Yeah, I'll be gone the second week of June.
I'm going the last week.
The third week. The third week might work.
the week of the 17th, the 17th of June.
Sure.
Yeah.
That could
So
work.
that's a Monday, right?
That's a Monday, the 17th.
That's the 17th. What about the 18th, Tuesday, the 18th
How
of
about
June?
How about the 19th?
Let's see, Wednesday, the 19th.
The city be closed on the 19th?
Oh, Juneteenth,
Juneteenth.
it's Juneteenth. Yes, it will be. Yeah.
No, the city's not closed.
You're not closed on that day? but it is Juneteenth. They have events.
Right, the 20th.
Can we do Thursday, the 20th? Does that make it hard on you,
Yeah, we
Gretchen?
could do that.
It should still be okay.
Okay.
Noon is okay, I can
Okay.
usually,
Can we do noon to 2? I like to have 2 hours for these because I want everybody to.
Yes.
Okay, so June the 20th. Can we just make a motion, please, to have our next workshop on June the 20th at 12 noon at the Chamber, since it's not regularly scheduled?
So moved.
Okay, so Johnny Robinson makes that and Nikki makes the second. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, so, and just to note, our next advisory board meeting will be August the 20th. Please put that on your calendar. That's a 12 to 1 meeting if I can keep it to an hour.
So for the
Yes,
for the work session, I will bring pizza. Today is my last day as the director.
Oh,
of
what a
the
wonderful
Urban
job you've done. I'm not trying to give it your last day, but you've done such a good job.
You don't get to special order your pizza, you're just gonna get whatever.
Okay, that would be very nice, thank you, because when we have 2 hours, we should have some.
Yes, I
On
can't go that
the
long.
20th, will that be here or City Hall?
August the 20th?
Yeah.
Here, all of our meetings are now being held here,
Okay, thank you.
going forward. We don't have to sit up on high.
Coordinates.
I think it'd be good to have another session on these crosswalk and discuss that. as
We'll
well.
have, it as part of that whole package thing, I think we need to.
Bring those samples in too.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can build into that segregation of the sidewalks on Public Street perhaps as well.
Well, we need to look at all of that, and I want to do a big package if we're going to
An
finance it.
expanded number of, add the crosswalks as well as then sidewalks for the 100 and 200 block, then it becomes a much bigger project. Potentially.
Foster, is there a way to get a list of everybody who is supposed to put trash in that container? Is that possible?
We can work with Swiss Bear on that, because they should
They've
have
got
a
it.
list.
She's the trash
Right.
ambassador.
She is
She's
the
the trash
trash
ambassador. We're gonna have trash ambassadors now.
Trash
And they're gonna monitor who spills trash
Yeah.
and then.
And also
They're not gonna
maybe,
have- yeah.
maybe a financial report of how much the city has spent cleaning up, I think would be.
Yeah, just to give us an idea.
I was late to arrive, sort of, but did Karen get introduced?
She did,
Yeah.
she did. She did, and we're glad to have her. Welcome. Does anybody else have anything for the good of the order?
I have
Yes,
one
sir.
last-
Oh, sorry, okay.
The Chelsea chair, Chris.
Yes.
So what's happening with his seat?
Yeah, I was gonna ask that.
Oh,
He has to
yeah.
resign the seat,
Yes.
and the board of aldermen will appoint a new
Restaurant.
member from the restaurant.
Okay, from the
From the
original
standing.
applications?
They will be given the opportunity to look at that, or the board may decide that they want to open it up to any other folks who want to do that qualify for the restaurant seat.
Okay. And when, that's happening soon, or?
And the other condition, I know that Chris had asked me about this, was that the people that now own the Chelsea could be considered because they are property owners. And if they did, they could potentially, Chris could be their appointee because you are allowing, I believe, that somebody to
That's the owner
designate,
can
that's
designate.
designate, yes.
I know last meeting we did the farmer's market thing. Where does that stand with Board of Aldermen?
That was passed.
That was passed,
Yes,
yes.
the money was.
Yeah, forgive me because I didn't watch the meeting.
Yes.
Yeah,
Good.
so-
Money
so
was-
Good job, guys.
Those things
Yeah, they are
in
already working on it,
progress.
which is good. Yeah, that is good. Okay, I need a motion to adjourn, please.
So
Johnny,
Second.
Nikki, second. All those in favor? Thank you all, appreciate it.